Dr. Julius Maada. O Allah, guide and inspire His government, state officials, security sector, and our political leaders. O Allah, we pray to you to help and support him to lead our beloved nation, to sustain our peace, national unity, and social cohesion. O Allah, guide the deliberation of this event. Grant positive and progressive leadership qualities to our political, traditional, and religious leaders. O Allah, help and guide the youth and women of this country so they may continue to sustain the national gains and legacies of our country and overcome the challenges and ensure a bright and prosperous future. O Allah, make this nation safe, secure, peaceful, united, and prosperous. O Allah, grant our esteemed foreign invited guests pleasant stay in our country and safe return to their respective countries. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
Thank you very much for that prayer. With that said, that means we are ready to commence fully. Your Excellencies, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning once again. And may I once again thank you for being a part of this and to inform us that everything we need to make this a success is here. Already, we had the presence, a privilege to welcome the distinguished Right Honorable Patricia Scotland as she brings the salt of justice and preservation power to the institutional memory. We also want to specially thank His Excellency, His Royal Majesty, who I discuss and describe as one who represents the palm oil and delicacy and fish in the rich culture without leadership becomes dry and disconnected. To all our ministers, they are all part of this cooking. But the lead of it all is His Excellency, who will deliver later for us the keynote address that drives the vision of leadership, innovation, and compassion for us. So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the fire is lit, the kitchen of African destiny is open. The ingredients are before us, and our history is waiting to see what kind of leadership meal shall come out of this colloquium. May I therefore say welcome. In the beautiful spirit of Sierra Leone, let's say, Kushe, Una Kushe na Salom. And as our grandmother will say in the warmth in their eyes and in their voices, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Welcome, and may Africa rise not merely in power, but in purpose and leadership. I think we should put our hands together for those who have thought it wise to host this colloquium. The air in here is a little hot, and there is a tendency for you to feel as though it is hotter and time is shorter when we're doing what we're doing. It was easy for me when I was invited as MC to the commissioning of a bridge somewhere in one of the countries. That day, the minister had not read his speech before coming, and his PA had only managed to print one copy. We were all standing on the bridge, and in between collecting the speech from his PA's hand, there was a bad wind that came and took the paper, and the thing fell into the river. And he had not read his speech before, so he looked at me, looked at his PA, and made the shortest ever ministerial speech. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, with my speech in the river, I hereby commission the bridge." Your Excellencies, we will focus on the screen and listen and watch the story behind this colloquium, the convergence of the vision and how we had fared since we had our first outing last year. Shall we focus now on the screen, please?
His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada has championed the leadership rooted in values, driven by purpose, and anchored in hope. The Julius Maada Leadership Colloquium in a world hungry for vision and thirsty for integrity, leadership is not a title. It is a call to serve, to inspire, and to transform lives. From the hills of Freetown to the hills of global diplomacy, His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada has championed the leadership rooted in values, driven by purpose, and anchored in hope. The Julius Maada Leadership Colloquium is more than an event. It is a gathering of minds and hearts, a platform to shape Africa's future, to spark bold conversations, and to craft solutions that leave no one behind. This year, we focus on African leadership in an era of global uncertainty, not as a slogan, but as a driver of national progress and continental transformation. Here, leaders, thinkers, and innovators converge to share knowledge, ignite ideas, and inspire the next generation. Join us, be part of the dialogue, be part of the change, because when leadership listens, empowers, and acts, a nation rises and Africa shines. The President Julius Maada Leadership Colloquium, inspiring leadership, empowering Africa.
Well, I think we should clap properly for that. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. And to take this further, I have the honor of introducing my co-MC, who is one of you. I supported many years ago to the US, but she's truly a global citizen, going everywhere and telling the African story, particularly for the poor, the downtrodden, and the marginalized. She's an award-winning journalist, author, and TV host. Please put your hands together as I welcome Aisha Sese.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. First of all, let me say, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. And let me also say, yesterday, we had a room full of young people. Now, I don't want to suggest that you're all old. I wouldn't do that. I would. But there was so much more energy. So I'm going to do this again and say, good morning, everyone. Louder, louder, louder. You can do this better. Good morning, everyone. Okay. This is going to take a few tries. So it is such a tremendous honor to be here with all of you. It is worth pointing out, for those who were in the room yesterday, that I haven't hosted at home in over 20 years. In fact, I don't think I've ever hosted at home in Sierra Leone. But His Excellency called, and here I am. And I thought, how fitting that my first time on stage, a young man said to me while I was backstage, I've been facing a way to my name talk so. Why are you on stage? And it was, but for those who don't understand Creole, someone thought I was white when they were listening from backstage. And so for anyone who's in any doubt, for the Nigerians in the house who like to claim me and suggest that I'm Nigerian, I am not Nigerian. I am Sierra Leonean through and through. Sorry, Your Majesty. Not that you're claiming me from Warri State, I'm just saying. I'm Sierra Leonean through and through. I go convent, I go Lebanese school. I grew up here, so I am home. And it's such an honor to be here with you. Can we change it? Thank you. Is this one on? It is. Okay. It is such an honor to be here with you for a truly special event. An event that's very close to His Excellency's heart. One which over the next couple of hours is encouraging us individually and collectively to grapple with some difficult questions. What is a good leader? What does a great leader look like in the 21st century? If we know that having women in positions of power yields tremendous dividends for everyone across society, why aren't there more of us? And what do we do to change that? These are some of the questions we should grapple with over the next couple of hours. Again, apologies for the heat. A nice Sierra Leonean welcome for our foreign guests. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce to the stage a man who has dedicated much of his professional life to these questions of good governance. How do we, not yet, how do we make sure that it benefits all? He is our nation's Vice President, Dr. Mohammed Julde Jallow. He will join us on stage shortly to deliver the welcome remarks, but it is just worth pointing out that he is a man who has made it his life's work to ensure that good governance is not something that is out of reach for all, but it is something we grapple with each and every day. Your Excellency, the stage for the welcome remarks.
Thank you very much, our sister, Madam Aisha Sise. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, my boss, honorable ministers, Your Majesty, former President of the Republic of Rwanda, Your Royal Highness, former Commonwealth Secretary General, our guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Today, my task is very simple here, is to welcome you. First, I must say, on behalf of His Excellency, the government and the people of Sierra Leone, I want to personally welcome you to the second edition of the Julius Maada Leadership Colloquium in honor of a great leader that has shaped the modern history of this country. And I want to take the opportunity particularly to welcome our international guests to Sierra Leone for honoring our president, for honoring our great leader, and by extension, for honoring the people of this country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you will all agree with me that when you look at the theme for this conference, Reimagine Africa in an era of global uncertainty, there is no better time than now. When you look around the world, you see what is happening today. Today, if you take the international development regime alone, the international development window is shrinking. A couple of last year, we were in Sevilla in Spain to discuss global ideas how to finance development in developing countries. The message was clear that international development regime is going to change drastically. African countries are expected to look after themselves. We are expected to develop the kind of capacity that we need to generate revenue to look after ourselves. Today, global priorities are changing. Bilateral movements are getting inward. Global international institutions are struggling to keep global peace and also to propel democracy across the globe. When you leave the global stage, you come to the region, the West African region, you will also agree with me that the region is reshaping itself. Over the last couple of years, we have seen turbulent period in the West African sub-region. The Sahel crisis is there. conflict all over the place. And that was the time that His Excellency assumed the leadership of the Economic Community of West African States. A very, very challenging period where we are seeing a growth of statelessness. Countries that we are proud that before as the beacon of democracy, like Mali, for example, that started the first national conference for ushering democracy in this region, today is confronted with various challenges. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, democracy is reversing in the region at a speed. That is a period wherein our Excellency was given the honor to lead ECOWAS. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, when you look at all of this, when you look at this uncertainty both at the global level and also the regional crisis we are confronted with, I think this is the time that you need the courage to lead in these very difficult times. You also need innovation to innovate how you navigate this crisis, both at the global level, the regional level, and also at the domestic level. I usually remind Sierra Leoneans every day that in this country of about 8 million people, 720 kids are born every day in Sierra Leone. That translates into 15 classrooms every day. In this country, every day we give birth to 15 classrooms of children. And when you have a president that provides free quality education at maternal level, at primary and secondary level, you can imagine that inscription, you can imagine that enrollment into higher educational institution is overstretched. And all of these young people that go to school free and go to the university will require jobs. These are not really very good times for leadership, but these are the times when real leaders are born and they demonstrate the courage to lead and also the innovation to navigate global realities. And then more importantly, to do all of this, you need to carry your people along. You need to carry your people along. That is what accountability means. And when you demonstrate leadership to lead, and you are innovative about what kind of governance architecture you are going to build, you need to carry your people along. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is the era of uncertainty, but this is also the opportunity for bold leadership that we believe has been demonstrated by our leader. In this forward-looking spirit, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you on behalf of His Excellency, and we do hope that this leadership colloquium will become a permanent feature of our governance landscape in this country. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Indeed, as you heard him say there, and I think you'll hear several times throughout this day, we need to carry our people along. Good governance and the good society and inclusive society must involve everyone from the bottom up. That being said, how many people were here yesterday? Show of hands. How many of you were here yesterday? Okay, a good number of you. So for those of you, and thank you for being here for day 2. For those of you who weren't here yesterday centered youth leadership. And so the room was full of young people from more than 10 African countries. They brought their passion, they brought their blunt honesty, they brought dynamic conversation to the room. And it was a day full of unforgettable moments, but don't take my word for it. Check out the screen.
I see the potential, the latent potential which we need to unleash and intense empowerment. Empowerment with knowledge, into resources, and the space by us or with us. The mentorship is important because it affirms to you that yes, this young person has brought you up, is learning you. And the society, that's why I always tell the young people, the God is watching whether my experiment is working. You better behave yourself. I am challenging them that there is agency in you, and we should find ways to express that in a way that is responsible, in a way that is going to make us
applause. It really was a very, very special day. I will say, though, one of my takeaways from yesterday was this question of where is the cutoff point to call yourself a youth? Chief Minister, I'm looking at you. I'm just saying. 35? Is that it? After that, you're that. I'll just say you're full of youthful energy. Let's go with that. So that was indeed one of the questions that emerged, but it was a very, very special day. And today we anticipate many more unforgettable moments, many more probing conversations. And to kick us off, well, first keynote, I'd like to introduce to the stage a woman who is a groundbreaker, a trailblazer. She's a woman of many, many firsts. I don't want to get them wrong, so I will actually use some notes. She is the first Black woman to serve as the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. She's also, and I did not know this, she is the first woman to serve as Attorney General for England and Wales and Advocate General for Northern Ireland. And I think what is most important is that every time she assumes a position of power, a position of leadership, she changes the space, the institution, the culture, the people in big and small ways. That is the power of female leadership. And I'm so thrilled to introduce and welcome to the stage Right Honourable Baroness Patricia Scotland.
Can you hear me now? So I'm going to give you a second chance. I'm going to say good morning, and you're going to show whether you are alive. Good morning. There you are. So this is a very important moment for me, and I'm going to say thank you, firstly, to the distinguished President, my dear friend and brother, Julius Maada, who is your wonderful President, the First Lady, the Vice President, Your Excellencies, former President Joyce Banda from Malawi, who is my dear sister and friend, Your Royal Majesty, Honourable Ministers, distinguished elders, young leaders, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to talk about leadership and female leadership. But I think it's only fair that I make a full and frank confession before I start. And that is, as I told others yesterday, that I am one of my parents' 10 only children. But I have 7 brothers and a most magnificent father. And I grew up believing that men were wonderful, that they were kind, they were generous, they were intelligent and bright and trustworthy. And that is something that I think we bear in mind, that when we talk about women, we are not forgetting our wonderful men. But as my mother would tell us when we were young, we don't let men do anything else on their own, so why do we women allow them to run the world? They need our help. And I first want to thank His Excellency the President for bringing us all together, and his most generous invitation, because he has championed leadership in education, inclusion, in women's empowerment, and human capital development across this continent, not just in Sierra Leone. And he has truly walked the talk when it comes to supporting women leaders. And I want to take this opportunity, if I may, to thank him for supporting me as the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, the first woman to have that role throughout. And I have to confess to you, there were times when I really needed that leadership, that friendship, and that solidarity. And your President and his First Lady gave it to me without reservation. Because we have spoken yesterday and today about courage and about the fact that leadership demands courage. Well, if you wanted to see what courage looks like in its personification, then I think you need look no further than your President. Africa today stands at a defining moment of its history. This continent is the youngest continent on Earth. Ours is also one of the richest continents in culture, creativity, resilience, and natural wealth. And yet ours is also a continent still too often constrained by systems that do not fully unlock the talents of all of our people. And I say our people because I'm very much an African woman from the continent of the Caribbean, but African nonetheless. That is why today's theme, Power in Equity, Advancing Women's Leadership for Better Africa, is not merely a conversation about representation. It's a conversation about power, about prosperity, about stability, about governance, about future competitiveness of our nations. Because the truth is simple. No nation can rise fully whilst half its talent remains unutilized. It's a comment made by His Excellency the President yesterday, and I wish to fully underline and endorse it. And no continent can lead globally whilst women continue to face structural barriers to leadership, to finance, to ownership, and decision-making. We know this, not only morally, we know economically, institutionally, strategically. Around the world, the evidence is now overwhelming. Countries that invest in women's leadership are more stable. The institutions are more trusted. The economies are more resilient. The communities are more cohesive, and their governance outcomes improve. Women leaders consistently strengthen both long-term thinking, social investment, institutional accountability, and peace building. And perhaps most importantly, in this era of uncertainty, women leaders often govern with a deeper understanding that leadership is not domination, leadership is stewardship. A reason and a lesson that the greatest leaders have all learned, not least my friend and brother, President Bio, and my sister, President Joyce Banda. Remember what she did, not only for Malawi, but for Africa, and what she is still doing today. Africa needs more stewardship because we are living through an age of profound global disruption, economic volatility, climate shocks, technological transformation, geopolitical fragmentation, rising debt pressures, institutional distrust, and the growing anxiety of our young people searching for opportunity and dignity. In such an age, leadership cannot merely be charismatic. It must be credible. Leadership today requires courage. We said that all day yesterday, constantly, that word courage, 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 echoed throughout the room and throughout the day. But it needs more than courage. It needs competence, compassion, and institutional discipline. And this is where the conversation about women's leadership becomes so important. Too often, women are invited into leadership systems that were never designed for inclusion. I go so far to say in some of the institutions, if you go to the bathrooms are male and there are no female. So it wasn't meant to include. Systems where access to finance remains unequal, where political participation is harder, where unpaid labor remains invisible, where mentorship networks are weaker, where decision-making structures remain exclusionary. So our task is not simply to add women into existing structures. Our task is to redesign systems so that talent, integrity, and contribution matter more than patronage, proximity, or inherited advantage. That means legal reform, educational access, digital inclusion, financial inclusion, institutional reform, and above all, accountability. Because equality without implementation is merely aspiration. And Africa is overflowing with aspiration. But what we really need is execution. And that is why I have always believed that governance matters deeply. Not governance as paperwork, but governance as the ability of a nation to deliver dignity, fairness, opportunity, and trust to its people. Strong institutions are not abstract concepts. They determine whether a young woman can access credit, whether a business can grow fairly, whether justice is delivered consistently, can be touched, tasted, felt by the individual members of the community, whether public resources reach communities honestly, whether citizens trust the future enough to invest in it. Institutional credibility is now one of the most valuable forms of national capital. And this matters enormously to Africa's future, because global capital today is searching for trusted destinations. Young entrepreneurs are seeking for enabling environments, and innovation and innovators are searching for systems that reward merit, and women are searching for pathways to leadership that are real and not symbolic. Africa's next chapter, and therefore its most important chapter, is not going to be written only by natural resources. It will be written by institutional capability, by our ability to build societies which are transparent, strengthened, where public trust is protected, where innovation is encouraged responsibly, where technology serves humanity rather than replacing it, and where leadership is measured not by power accumulated, but by lives improved. And I have seen across the Commonwealth and beyond, when women are empowered within strong institutions, transformations accelerate. When I took up office in the Commonwealth in 2016, the Commonwealth Secretariat was rated as a C-rated organisation. We had just over 3 months money in the bank, which would mean that if we were not an international institution, we would have been trading whilst insolvent. By the time I left in 2025, in fact, by 18 months after I arrived, we were rated as a AAA rated organisation. We had solved our debts, and we met 100% of our strategic plan. And how was it done? It was done by listening, by working with our leaders, our ministers, and our people, and by delivering change together. And that inclusive leadership, not the money, not the technology, that inclusive leadership is what made the difference. And people had to come with us, had to trust us. And that would not have been done if women and men did not work together in partnership equally. Many people say, why have the women leaders done so well, and why have their governments done so well? Is it because women are intrinsically better? And there's a temptation, of course, for the ladies to say, but of course. But the truth is, not so. The truth is, if you look at the women's administration, they are equal. You have wonderful men working with good women. And when you look at the administrations led by men, which have done well, you see wonderful men leading with wonderful women participating. And that's what President Bio has done with his 30%, but I know he's hungering for 50-50. So, joint partnership between men and women is an economic gift to the world. It'll make us richer, it'll make us stronger, it'll make us deliver on the aspirational opportunities that are there. And this is particularly important for Africa. As Africa enters into the age of artificial intelligence and digital transformation, technology alone will not save us. Technology without ethics can deepen inequality. Technology without accountability can centralize power. Technology without inclusion can leave millions behind. But technology guided by human values, guided by justice, guided by transparency, guided by inclusion, can become a powerful accelerator to development. And Africa, therefore, has a unique opportunity, not merely to adopt and adapt systems built elsewhere, but to shape distinctly African models of inclusive development, human-centered, community-rooted, and institutionally credible. And I believe women must stand at the center of building that future, not at the margins, not as participants only, but as architects, architects of policy, architects of enterprise, architects of peace, architects of innovation, architects of governance, architects of a more confident Africa. One of the proudest things that was entrusted to me was to try and build peace in our Commonwealth. And of the 56 countries, at least 26 at various times were in difficulties. And one of the most beautiful gifts God gave me was an opportunity to be with our people at their time of most need. And I remember coming here to Sierra Leone on the 25th of May of 2023 for the Peace Colloquium. It was my 38th wedding anniversary, and I don't know whether my husband has yet forgiven me. But to come and be with Commonwealth citizens as you made peace was a great gift. So women can be catalysts to help others to walk together. And to young women listening today, your leadership is not a favor to society. It is essential to society. And to the men in this room, gender equality is not a woman's issue. It is a national development strategy. No country succeeds. No country succeeds sustainably by excluding talent. And no leadership legacy endures unless it creates opportunity for those who come next. And that was what yesterday was all about, building our tomorrow. Because as the President made clear, as we get older, we are going to be dependent on these young people to look after us. And we need to train them well, otherwise we are going to have a miserable old age. So that is why partnership matters. Governments, regional institutions, the private sector, civil society, international partners, traditional leadership, young people, all of us. None of us can solve these challenges alone. But together we can build systems that are more trusted, economies that are more inclusive, institutions that are more resilient. The future of Africa will not ultimately be decided in speeches. It will be decided by implementation. But whether we move from commitments to measurable action, from exclusion to participation, from fragility to confidence, I remain optimistic. Because when I travel across Africa, I do not see a continent of limitations. I see a continent of extraordinary possibility. I see young innovators, I see courageous women, I see reformers, I see to build nations worthy of the next generation. Africa's greatest resource is not beneath the ground. It is its people. That's our real gold, our real diamond, our real rubies, our real sapphires are our people. And amongst those people are millions of women and girls whose leadership is of their potential. I believe we can. I believe we must. And I believe Africa's greatest century lies ahead. My father was born in 1912. He was a great Pan-Africanist, born at the time when African liberation was a dream. It's now rejoicing and dancing because he would know our time has come. It is up to us, this generation, to deliver what the generations before us prayed for, thirsted for, hungered for, and never tasted. We must not just taste it, we must deliver it for everyone. And so I thank you, my dear brother and friend, President Bill, for making today and yesterday possible, but also changing not just this country, but helping to change this continent. And may God bless you, may God bless Sierra Leone, and may God bless Africa.
Thank you so much, Baroness Scotland. Thank you, thank you. I think it's important, as I alluded here, I think it's important to just reiterate what she said, because it is a point that His Excellency President Bio is committed to, this understanding and realization that this nation's greatest resource is not what is beneath the soil. As much as we talk about our resources, as vital as they are to our economy, our greatest resource are the people. It is this human capital development that President Bio has committed himself to furthering here in Sierra Leone. Baroness Scotland, I think you said it so beautifully that leadership and good leadership displays competence, displays compassion and institutional discipline. And our next keynote speaker has done so over and over again. She's an embodiment of those qualities. She was Malawi's first female president. She was also their first female vice president. Before she got into politics, she founded numerous businesses and organizations. Dr. Julius Maada is a woman who is many things. She's a politician, she's an entrepreneur, she's an activist, and she's a philanthropist. And we are very fortunate to have her here. Please give her a very warm welcome to the stage.
Hello, is it working? Your Excellency, President Julius Maada, Your Excellency, and my beloved sister, First Lady Fatima Bio, Your Excellency, Baroness Scotland, the first woman to head the Commonwealth, Your Majesty, the King of Warri, my beloved King, Vice President, Cabinet Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, having listened to a well-written and researched speech from Baroness Scotland, I think they invited me to come and share my experience. I'm 76 years old, and I think there are so many here who can benefit from my experience along the way. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I have learned that to be a leader, particularly of a nation, I don't know how many in this room have been president, so I can have the privilege of saying what you don't know about, is that you need wisdom. And wisdom is not found in any textbook. You can have all manner of academic credentials, but at the end of the day, you need wisdom. And wisdom comes from God alone. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my president and happy birthday. And I am so proud to be back to Sierra Leone. God has given me the opportunity to see those that get into leadership for the power and those that get into leadership to serve. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I heard a lot of President Bio's achievements yesterday, but that's not how I got to know him. I have been very angry about how our girls are treated in the Middle East. There are countries on this continent where they receive 90, 100 bodies a year because our girls are being abused and tortured and they are enslaved in the Middle East. Some countries like Dubai, they have now banned what they call kafala, where when you get this innocent girl from Africa, she is nothing but a slave. She can't even leave and go back home. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that's when I first heard about President Bio, because he's one of the few leaders on the African continent who raised his voice to say, no, it's not acceptable for our girls to suffer like that. Women started talking even at the African Union about one President Bio who is not afraid to offend his friends, to raise issues that they don't want to talk about. And we gathered and we mobilized ourselves and we decided that we're going to travel to Sierra Leone to come and honor President Bio. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, so I got to the airport and got down. Then I got on the boat. And then I didn't know where I was going. I said, we are on the boat to go where now? And they said, no, that's how you get to the mainland. This time around, President, it wasn't so bad. I was very comfortable on the boat coming here. But the only problem that you may wish to sort out is that the life jackets couldn't fit. I asked my entourage, you are in life jackets, meaning that you can get to Malawi without me. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, those who have been given the wisdom by God to lead their nations, like our president here, have also got the rare gift of mobilizing otherwise people. Mr. President, maybe you don't know this, I'm busier than I have ever been. I've just finished a 6-nation tour. I am on great demand. So this me, takes me, carries me, anywhere that I want to go. President Mandela one time at Kasani said, the beauty is that when you also get to age 70 and beyond, you can say anything. Because they will say, who said that, Joyce Maada? Senior citizen. Your Excellency, that 6-tour nation trip that I made, one of the places I went was Nigeria. The government of Nigeria invited me to go and give a speech on the commemoration of the death of General Mahatma Mohammed, one of the leaders on this continent, who came into office and didn't stay long because he was assassinated. But the things that he initiated in that 12 months, in that year, have had lasting effect on the country called Nigeria. So they wanted me to go and speak. Sometimes I think to myself, I don't know how I get from West Africa to North Africa to everywhere to speak. But anyway, while I was in Nigeria, His Majesty the King heard that I'm in Abuja. Oh, they had never met this king before. In fact, I thought he was as old as the elders at the back. I didn't know he was such a young, handsome king. Oh, did that be my son? They told me he's looking for you. He wants you to go to Wari. He wants you to interact with women of his kingdom. I said, I don't know how to get to Wari. And where, by the way, where is Wari? And finally he said, tell her I'm sending her a private jet. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I ended up in Wari. I don't know about other kings, but this is a king that has put his people at the center stage. This is a king who cares about their livelihood. This is a king who would stay in the state house, in the palace, they call it the palace, and just enjoy himself. And nobody would ask him. After all, he inherited the position. But what he has done, I invite some of you to make the effort to go and visit. So I got to the kingdom of Wali. Now I want to agree with my sister, Baroness, Scotland. We dance the same music, regardless of where you are. Even the Caribbeans come and dance, and they follow the beat. I am with no intention of offending those that are not African. When they dance, I get worried because their steps and their rhythm don't go together. But here we were, getting out of the plane in Wari. There are drums at the airport. I forget I'm guest of honor. I'm already on the ground. I'm dancing all over the ground. We are all Africans. I don't know who divided us. We were supposed to be one country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, President Biya has a wife, and anybody who is a foreigner coming in for the first time and listens to the first lady of this country talking, you can't act that out. You are either born an advocate, somebody who cares, who is generous, but you can't act that out. I watched that speech and I listened very carefully. And she even said, "Where are my children?" And I turned and they were actually sitting there. You know, people act that out for people to just see, to think there's a first lady who is working. But don't worry, my sister. People who go out, flat out, working like that, sometimes don't get the support. But you know what? The greatest support you have is your husband. I have not heard many presidents mention their wife in their speech, as if we don't exist. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we as Africans have been very lucky. We have been very lucky that leadership of women is not beginning now. Leadership of women is even in our history books. And you know what? They even say that we were delayed by those that colonized us. We were already ruling our nations. Go and find out about the Asentawa of Uganda. And even here in Sierra Leone, there were powerful women who stood up for the rights of women and children. When they came and colonized us, they didn't know what to do with us. So they left us aside. And so our progress delayed. The good news is that when our brothers on the continent started fighting for freedom, self-rule, we stood to the occasion. So we know there are women like Winnie Mandela, Abedina Sisulu, Rose Tuambo of Malawi. I can go across the whole continent, naming them one after another, who did a lot, who realized that they can stand up side by side with their brothers. Why is this important for me to talk about? I say this because you, our men, you, our brothers, have not struggled to allow us to participate in leadership. Why? Because you were born watching that. You saw our Asentawa, you saw women kings, you saw women neighbors participating in leadership. I don't know where we lost it, but I'm not going to stand here and blame our brothers because I think they've gone a very long way. I am one woman here who can tell you for sure that there is no time during my leadership when I can say men did not support me. In fact, it is my fellow women who ran me down. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, so we have a president who has the interests of these people at heart, particularly what we heard yesterday about young people. I don't know if you are following the news. Our children are leaving their nations to go look for green pastures, and they are meeting untold misery through acts of xenophobia. And if we begin to hide and not talk about it, then we are failing our people. I have nothing to lose. I'm not a president, so I can say whatever I want. It's not fair what our children are going through. But what I have always said is that our presidents then should rise and create opportunities in their countries so that their young men and women don't have to leave their soil to go anywhere else. And yesterday we heard one story after another. The chief minister cited examples of what President Bill has done to make sure that he empowers those that didn't have any hope. And therefore, that's the direction we must go. Those of us across the continent, and I'm calling upon my brothers and sisters, that they should know that it is important to create opportunities for our people on the ground so that our children don't go and get abused anywhere else. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there are still young people in the room. What we saw yesterday is not happening across the continent. Young people are being abducted and killed just by raising their voice. There was one little young man yesterday who stood up and said, "Mr. President, I want to be president." I said, "Is he out of his mind?" In other places, you can't even say that. Women are being beaten, stripped naked, just by trying to seek elected office. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, so here we are with a president who loves his people, who has put social issues at the center. Education, health. I don't know food security as well. I don't know if there's any country, any citizenry that will support you when they are going to bed without food. And Mr. President, I just want to thank God for your leadership. And I want to thank all those that are standing with you and by you and working with you. As far as women are concerned, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we must stop women in this room that are African. Stop glorifying what lies they say about us. Oh, Africa is a dark continent. And oh, Africa has broken. And oh, Africa hasn't done this, that, and the next. As far as leadership is concerned, we have done better than most continents. In fact, I don't know if you heard this, some with 250 years, democracies, they haven't taken one single woman to State House up to now. They're still trying. We have 7. Ndaitwa, president of Namibia, is female president number 8, number 7 on the continent of Africa. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that's not any achievement. Somebody was telling me, oh, our country, we just elected a vice president. It's great news. I said, it's great news. A vice president. I was president in 2009. Where I come from in Africa, vice presidents are 2 a penny. You can have him any day. We are talking about presidents leading the nation. So don't begin to lecture to us about democracy and about what we should do when we have achieved better than you. Don't. Some lady who lives in Nigeria, but grew up in Nigeria, but lives in the States. Arikana Tombori had organized an event to honor me and Ellen Serif, 2015. And we were in Washington, D.C., and she invited a lot of African women, including this lady. And she raised her hand, she said, "Madam Jospin, advise me, what can I do? I go back and forth to my country, and the women are so passive. I tell them, let's rise, let's march. They don't want to do that. I'm very frustrated." I said, wait. In this country where you live, how many women are in parliament? 18%. I said, you know, where I come from, where you come from, Rwanda has 63% of women in parliament, the highest in the world. I said, in this country where you live, how many presidents have been in State House? She says, not president, I said, hey, where we come from, we have got 7. So what we need to do is not to rejoice that we have arrived, but to say there's so much work to be done, as Baroness Scotland has said, but also to take credit for what we have been able to achieve with the help of our brothers. And the approach, my dear leaders in the room, is not going to be confrontational, to confront our men, to fight with our men. We are going to do what African women know best how to do. We are master negotiators. Maybe you don't know, but I know. Even my husband knows that I can twist him and do what I want because I know how to negotiate without making him feel small. So the whole idea of moving, marching on the street, calling presidents all manner of names, doesn't work. My advice to you, my fellow women, we have no time to waste. We must achieve more. But for us to do that, we must be dignified. We must be mature about our approach. Because there's no African leader that you are going to meet and he listen to you if you call him names. In Malawi, the law says, no president shall appoint less than 40% women in the cabinet and other positions in government. So we had just had an election that year. And he decided he was going to cheat us. So he appointed 35%. And I just heard that women are dancing on the road. They are marching to Parliament to deliver a petition. And I always take advantage of the privilege I have to have been a leader of a nation that I can phone any president, anytime. So I picked the phone. I said, Mr. President, I hope you know what's going on. Women are marching on the road. They are going to Parliament to deliver a petition because of what you've done. He says to me, what have I done? As if he didn't know. I said, you've broken the law. I've broken the law. So, State House was this side, and the Parliament was the opposite direction. So they were dancing, going this way. He said to me, where are they at? I said, midway going to Parliament. He says, but I'm in State House. They are lost. So I called my friends immediately. I said, quick, you are lost. He's in State House. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if you shout at our men with their ego, and that we know, and patriarchy, they'll just ignore you. They will not even want to see you. Those of you who are activists in the room, learn the game. Be in a position where, when you are raising issues, they will say, is Joyce Maada with the women? Yes, tell Joyce Maada to come. Because he knows you will tell him just sense, without any emotions, without any antagonism. So they went back and made the so-called president, and in a few weeks or two, he appointed 42% women to cabinet and 50-50 judges. So it is how you are going to approach the issues. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, somebody has said, colonization did not bring female leadership, it interrupted it. And I want to believe that. So we are not going to wait for somebody to tell us how to achieve gender equality. Just by engaging our men and talking to them and telling them how important it is. Even African Union has achieved equality, 50-50. And most presidents on the continent are appointing 50-50 women. And I saw young people yesterday, from chief minister to all that, I don't think they had to go and fight President Bio in order to be appointed. We must engage our men and talk to them with respect. We must respect one another. We don't have anything to lose. We shall, at the end of the day, be the winners. I have asked, why is it that 100 million girls are not in school? You go in our capitals on the continent, they are selling tomatoes and mangoes, and so their brothers are in class. That must change. And our leaders must help us achieve that. Get as many girls as possible to school. I have believed and I have learned that economic empowerment of women is the key to social entrepreneurship. So for me in Malawi, all those of us who were ministers, who were in business and went into politics, 5 of us went to become ministers of women and children, and me all the way to State House. So economic empowerment of women is a game changer. You have to run businesses. You have to make money. And let nobody tell you that money is evil, because it is not. It allows you to do good things. I went to church and I don't know what part of the Bible says. There was a rich man and a poor man, and the rich man died and went to hell and was crying with the poorest to come and drop water on his tongue because he was burning to death. When I finished singing that song, I stood up, I said, excuse me. I was born in this village, and you know I came from a very humble background. But I'm rich today, I'm not even ashamed to say that. And I feed 10,000 children a day. And I send 3,000 girls to school. If I was poor, would I do that? Oh no. I said, yes. Let's make most of you in this church today self-reliant. As I'm talking now, I'm busy funding their projects in order for them to have money at household table. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there is no way women are going to get leadership without being appointed. And those of us who are going to become leaders, the first thing I did was to appoint my fellow women to positions of leadership. It was the first time Malawi had a Chief Justice who was a woman. The first time Malawi had a Solicitor General, the Commissioner for Human Rights, the Chief Secretary in government, I think the equivalent of the Chief Minister. Sometimes we called ourselves to discuss matters of state, and it was the three of us, Chief Justice, Chief Secretary, and me, having a cup of tea, discussing Malawi. It can be done. We must take advantage of those positions when we are appointed to appoint fellow women. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm getting towards the age, and I want you to imagine this. Close your eyes and imagine that when I became president in 2012, in the southern part of Africa, SADC, one president heads the SADC for a year. So that year, President Sata of Zambia is the one who mentioned my name. Isn't it time for us to have a female leader to chair SADC? The only woman in the room who was representing her boss, who had gone to look at Marikana or something like that, is the one who stood and said, no, it's not yet time for women to lead. So President Sata says, oh, remind us, which country are you president? You. She started crying. I'll tell my president that you did this, that to me. I became chair of SADC. The moment I became chair of SADC, the SADC secretariat were looking for an executive secretary. And I told the secretariat, find a woman. And they found Dr. Tax from Tanzania. The law of SADC says, when somebody wins that interview, passes that interview, and is appointed executive secretary, she must take oath. And she or he must take oath at the SADC summit. So that SADC summit was being hosted by the first woman chair of SADC in Malawi. I said, we are going to have a swearing ceremony. So I called this lady to come to the podium. And when she came to the podium, the law of SADC says it is the Chief Justice who will administer that oath, and it was a woman that had just appointed in Malawi as Chief Justice. So she came to the podium. And so now it is the three of us. But it is also common practice that when the chair of the African Union is in the room and that function is taking place, she must come to the podium. My 15 brothers leading their nations in the SADC sat there watching us, 4 women, conduct matters of our region. And cheering us non-stop. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that photo, you can find it on the internet. But why I'm saying this now is to encourage President Bill. Don't look back. Keep going. We can see what you're doing. And we women are prepared to work with you and to claim our place at the table. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, 4 women in the region conducting matters of SADC, we can do it again and again. May God bless you.
I thought we were clapping for her. Let's put our hands together properly for her. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, that indeed was a very, very powerful statement. Deep words, motherly advice, challenging every aspect of the African continent, bringing us out with our dignity and helping us to approach men, to approach leaders, both men and women, with respect and maturity. Thank you very much, ma'am. Another round of applause. And you did say that at this stage of your life, you can say anything to anybody. And I agree with you. Thank you. That's my uncle who was 70. I said, what are the signs that will tell me that I'm getting old so I know quickly? And he told me there are 3 signs. I said, okay, sir, can you tell me? He said, the first sign is that you begin to forget a lot of things. So I wrote it down. Memory loss. So I asked him, I said, sir, what are the other 2? And he looked me straight in the eye and said, my son, honestly, I have forgotten. So I'm still waiting now for the other 2 signs. But may I also specially appreciate a few others who have joined the Olu of Warri. I'm told that he travels traditionally with very important chiefs. We have with him Chief Eugene Ikomi, the Olulaye of Warri Kingdom. Let's put your hands together for him. We have also Chief Omonobi Wumi, I hope I got that correct, the Omota Mudei of Warri Kingdom. Please put your hands together for him. And we have also Chief Walter Aboro, the Ose Uwote of Warri Kingdom. Please put your hands together for him. And we have with them the Special Advisor to the Delta State Governor on Community Development, Dr. Toyin Agbulaya, JP. Thank you very much. We are honored to have you. Up next, ladies and gentlemen, we are taking the message into a panel discussion. And our panelists are eventually ready. As today, we stand before a bitter contrast of riches and poverty, the majority of young led by tired, and a continent taught by the world that taught the world civilization, yet still waiting and seeking validation from the same world that once waited for it to prove that it was human. Our panel is one that is rich. The first on that list, ladies and gentlemen, is a man with over 30 years experience in economic development, one who had advised on the executive board of the World Bank, was a master of economic policy management and a master of public policy. May I invite on the panel the Minister of Finance in the Republic of Sierra Leone, Sheikh Ahmed Fantamadi Bangura. Let's put your hands together for him. Also on this panel, we have a seasoned organizational leader with passion for doing results-oriented and growing issues, first woman and first Botswana woman to serve as an MD of a diamond mining company in Botswana, the Nukara Diamond Corporation. He's a master in strategic management and a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. Let's welcome the Managing Director of Nukara Diamonds Botswana, Madam Nassim B. Larry. Please put your hands together for her. Thank you very much. Also on this list is one who was named among the most impactful World Fathers of 2023, the Humanitarian World Father of the Year by Pleasure Magazine, was also named the Leadership and Community Development Award of the 14th African Achievers Award, also specially recognized as the 100 most reputable Africans by the poll by RDI, and one of the most reputable Africans for the year 2025. And in 2025, again, he was also given the African Leadership Excellence Award, a champion of African unity and economic empowerment. I put this as a background because we'll be talking about leadership. May I therefore invite His Royal Majesty Ogiame Aturashid III, CFR, Yono of Warren Kingdom in Delta State. Please put your hands together for him. And to help us navigate this is the pilot of tourism. She understands tourism. She's not just in the corridor of power. The United States Major Tabler described her as the corridor of power. She's not a tourism driver. She's the map, the architect, the policy framework, and the evidence that tourism, and so alone indeed, can be visited by the world. May I therefore invite the Minister of Tourism, Republic of Sierra Leone, Mrs. Nabila Farida Tunis. Please put your hands together for her. She's of course here, and she will champion the affairs of this panel for the next 15 minutes or thereabouts. Once again, let's appreciate them with a round of applause.
Thank you very much, our MC, Your Excellency, sir, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As has been stated earlier, we meet at a defining moment for Africa and indeed the world. And we've heard previous speakers mention where we are and the challenges that we do have and the challenges we face and what needs to be done to address those challenges. But again, with all the shocks, with all the disruptions, history reminds us that moments like these, moments of uncertainty, it often becomes a breeding ground for reinvention. And so for Africa, it's not simply a governance conversation, it's a leadership moment. And the question before us is no longer whether Africa has potential. It's whether we're prepared to lead differently, with courage strong enough to confront difficult realities, accountability deep enough to rebuild public trust, and innovation bold enough to shape our own future. In Sierra Leone, we have witnessed how purposeful leadership can reposition national ambition. And under the leadership of His Excellency, the President, governance has increasingly been framed around human capital development, institutional reform, inclusion, innovation, and economic diversification. Now, whether it's through investments in education, expanding opportunities for women and young people, or elevating sectors such as tourism and the creative economy as drivers of growth, the emphasis has been on transforming potential into productivity and aspiration into measurable national progress. Your Excellency, sir, I recall vividly when seeking guidance from you, when I assumed the responsibility for tourism and culture. Your message was simple, yet deeply profound. Be innovative and think outside the box. That instruction resonates deeply because it captures the kind of leadership that Africa requires today. Leadership that is bold enough to challenge convention, adaptive enough to embrace change, and visionary enough to unlock new possibilities. So we are privileged distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to have with us a distinguished panel whose collective experience spans governance, business, and traditional leadership. And as you've heard, we are going to have an engaging moment with our esteemed panelists. So the first question I'd like to pose to our panelists, and I'll start with our unruffled and grounded Minister of Finance, a person who has earned the recognition as one of the country's most effective economic managers, steering the nation through periods of significant global. I ask you in 1 minute, when you hear the phrase reimagining African leadership, what does it mean to you in the context of today's global uncertainties?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, Your Excellency, Your Highness, Your Majesty, Excellencies, colleagues, and ladies and gentlemen. Quite a very solid topic in my view. And I think an embodiment of what we face these days, where we are challenged as leaders to be very thoughtful, be courageous, open to our people, be accountable, but like you said, think outside the box to be able to respond to most of the challenges that the people have been looking forward to when you are appointed to lead them. And I will give an example. In Africa, what we need leaders who confront the challenges of the continent. And you demonstrate it from your own responsibility given in your own country. And in Sierra Leone, I'll give an example to my own leader, who in 2018, when he was elected and took the responsibility given to him by the people to shape this country, he inherited a very difficult economy. And with all the numbers on the macro side, we are not looking good, but also even poverty numbers were very difficult. And some of the questions that I think people will ask, especially on the bold decision he took on education. When he took the decision on education, he was actually questioned or doubted by the press and raising agencies, because they were questioning the fiscal sense that the decision made, that you may not be able to handle it. But he said that to lead a nation, the value is in its people and the quality of the people who make up that nation. And it starts right at the cradle of a given individual who must be educated and taken through the value chain of education. But they asked him, will you be able to afford it? That was a fiscal orthodoxy, that you can't handle it because your budget was not good. You're supposed to focus on addressing deficits. Well, he knew that deficit is just a number. But if you believe that there are quality human beings in your country, they are educated, healthy, well-fed, they may be able to innovate around the problems you have. But it's a decision you make today, because that decision, the result of it, only comes years later, maybe a generation later. That's the courage that I think we need within the continent. Leaders who don't just look at short-term results when they have maybe 5 or 10 years in office, but can take decisions that are going to shape the nation into the future. Now, I think that's where I see reimagining the continent in the current context really is. It's just that one example. But there are many other examples I can give you where he is led in that way. In the energy space, we are trying to solve our energy problem. A foundational infrastructure decisions are to be made. 65 years on, it is said that we don't have grid infrastructure in the country. 65 years on, our electricity infrastructure is weak. What did he do? When he met the MCC in the US, they asked him, what do you want to do with the resources American government will give to you? He said, I only need to solve energy. And say, why? He said, because that's the foundational infrastructure we need to transform a nation, whether for industry, for education, for healthcare, and the like. That's bold decision. That's courageous decision. That's what he did, just one area. And he did it not only for infrastructure. When they asked him as well, he did a compact for $2.2 billion